Hello, my name's Rob and welcome to Swift Slots. So this is part 3, the final part of my Skeletrix Metro 6R4 build with my own custom chassis. So in this episode I'll be doing the interior, the glass, the guides, the wiring, pulling all the components together, getting some decals on it and so on, and then hitting the track and seeing just how quick I've made it, or slow. So grab yourself a cup of tea and enjoy, hopefully. Cheers. Okay, well I made a bit of a correction after the last video. Those countersink bolts weren't really doing it for me. They didn't sit well with me. I felt a bit uncomfortable using them. So what I did is I went back to plan A. If you remember, I said I could do a hole with a plate, and I've done that. So I re-drilled these holes, the original countersinks, out to 4.3mm. And I've got these self-tappers. What I did as I took out all the old posts, and to be fair, some of them didn't glue as well as I'd hoped. The MEK doesn't seem to want to bite as well as I thought to this 30-year-old plastic, sadly. So I took them all out, cleaned it all up, and made some more 4mm square plastic card posts, chamfered the back, and left them plain. And I put this chassis, into the body, and got the wheels lined up perfectly. And then with my pencil, I marked through the hole onto the body, exactly centre of the hole on all 4 holes. Then with the chassis off, I was able to move these marks all the way across the body like that. So I actually had a proper mark to go by. Then what I did, to make sure that they glued well, having already scuffed up the inside of these posts anyway, and obviously sanded the inside down to a nice fresh surface, I used my old trusty green Zap, the medium strength green Zap. So I picked up these with a pair of tweezers, dipped them in the green Zap, and then plonked them onto the body, times 4, and then ran a little bit of extra around the sides just to give a little bit of a fillet. And I let that go. I didn't kick it with the kicker, I just let it go to let the acids in the Zap do its thing and just bite in naturally. And that's a lot better. These are now rock solid. So then what I did, once these were glued in, is I put my chassis back on and I marked with a pencil in the centres and then drilled exactly the centres of the holes using my eyepiece. I made sure that my drill was exactly in the middle of the circle that had been drawn with the pencil through the hole, and that got me my holes absolutely bang on compared to the chassis. So where you find me at the moment is that I've now got to put on the 4 little plates. So here's the finished product with the revised screws in. I ended up taking about 4 thou off the heads just to make them round because they're a little bit out of round, and put the shoulder in, no problems at all. Now what we've got is we've got a very nice amount of body rock side to side, but nothing forwards and backwards, so not side to side, vertically, but nothing forwards and backwards worth talking about, nothing sideways worth talking about. That's the flex in the body you might be able to see, but we got lots of nice movement vertically without, say, any noticeable forwards or backwards or even sideways. Well, there's a little bit of sideways there, but it's more flex of the body than anything else, and that's it. So that is much nicer. Obviously I can do the back screws up a little bit more, it's got to come apart 100 times, but so that's a lot better. So the way, I'll just take off these screws, and there is one screw there. So the heads have been cleaned and the screw has had its threads removed right up by the head there. And there is the hole with the plastic card base. I'll remove the other ones and you can see. So these are little plastic card that I was telling you about. They're 1/2 mil thick, so 20,000ths of an inch plastic card, cut into little squares and glued onto the plate, nice and neat, and then a hole drilled dead center in the chassis. And then I did have to put a little bit of a rebate here to allow the plastic card, this is the strip that I used, just to allow the strip to get level with the inside of that skirt, just there and there. So, and that's it. So there we are. So that is a revision. You should never be big enough to not admit a mistake. Sometimes in modelling you've just got to try it, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, you've got to backpedal, because it's a very long time wrong. It's pointless letting it go if it's not right, because it'll be wrong forever. So you may as well just backtrack and correct. So I'm going to start with making the window glass. So the plan is going to be getting this piece of paper and effectively stuffing it into this body in a semi-calculated way, and then we'll trace through and cut it out, and I'll make a template. So I'll run you through that process, probably in fast forward. So we get to this very approximate rough shape of roughly where we need to be with the vague shape of the glass. So we got the more or less the right size roof and just an approximation of the size. So what we do is we stuff that in there, and at this point it really doesn't matter if it's close or if it's not very close. Rather, it's more luck than anything else. So we'll get that in there. In fact, so what I want to do is just get in there and just establish whether my actual roof line, so I get my nail right in there and get that all nice and tight. And where's the roof? In there, kind of thing. There we go. Right, so now I've got my paper tight, and you can see it's looking not too bad. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to push, I'll bring this paper round like that. I'm going to push the paper into the window like that, and then I'm going to draw around the glass. Honestly, it really doesn't matter about going up the middle. You're really only interested in the front, the back and the bottom, really, for now. So that's that one, and while I'm here I'll do the other side, being careful not to let the paper move too much. You don't want to do that. Don't worry too much if there's creases here and there, as long as it's basically there. It's really all we're looking for. So just the front angle and the bottom and the back angle, that's what we want. Now we take it out, open them up, and you can see that we've actually got the mark of the glass. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go across the bottom, leaving a little margin, and draw my line, and then I'm going to cut little tabs. That one was a little bit high. I pondered there because that one was a little bit high, so we don't want to go too high. You want to keep it away from the glass, because you obviously want to go past the glass. So again, past the glass there, take off that excess, and there, and then straight down past the glass. There we are. Right, that's looking better. So I'll ignore that first cut. I just come across there. I can see the outline of where the body was, and to there. Right, so that's gotten that piece there. Do the same on this side here. So there we are. There we can see we got the rough template. And then we pop that back in the car, It should fit a little bit better now because we've taken off a lot of the recesses, a lot of the excess, sorry. So there you are, and then move that so it fits back where it came from. There. As you see, it's coming up on the inside there. And we'll do the same for the back. And there we go. So again, back in the car. And by now it should start to be fitting quite nicely. So we get them in there, square them all up, turn round, and there you have it there. So it's looking pretty good now. Okay, so I've had a bit of a think, and what I've decided to do is draw the line across here on the outside, on the top, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually chop off that whole front screen, because there's actually a decent amount of real estate across here which will translate into open bodywork on the inside of the shell here. I just square that back up, get that back where it's got to be, which is about there. So there's room here to get two tabs, two very small tabs, one here and one here, one here and one here. Just come in, create a little bit more space, to be fair, give myself a little bit of room, and come across there, and then fit a separate windscreen in. Also, what I'd like to do is cut the middle of this glass out, because I'm going to use that to get some silver packing tape, the reinforced packing tape, as a panel over here, and it'll overlap this glass, and this piece then will be exposed bodywork, and that will stick on the exposed bodywork whilst holding down the mirror, holding down the glass all the way on the outside, almost like a roof lining, I guess. And these tabs will end up having little holes drilled in them, in each piece there, 1 mil, 2 mil, 1.5 mil, something along those lines in there. And when it goes in and pushed into the inside, you put a little spot of super glue just through the hole. It's almost like a rivet of super glue, but it'll hold it. So not only will you have tape holding it in the top, you'll also have all these little tabs super glued through, holding the glass in place. And this glass here I'll make now, and it'll be separate. It'll have 4 tabs. And there we are. So there's my 2 templates. Just manipulate that one a little bit nicer. So that one there will fit in here like that. And the windscreen will fit in there like that on those tabs. So I found my piece of plastic. I'm going to put my template where I want it to go. No, it's going to have to be here, because you don't want any of the distortions of the rest of the plastic to get in the way of your glass. You want nice clean glass without any impressions from anywhere else. So that's where I'm going to have it. So I'm going to make my mark exactly where I want that, and then I shall cut it out. As you lay the plastic where you want it, and then we simply stick it down with sellotape like that, all the way around. Cover the whole thing. So you have it like that, completely all cut out, all sellotaped down and ready to go. And then all we'll do then is cut it out with scissors and a little knife and however. And there we are, cut out. So you take away that and you end up with that. Now leave this into place for just a minute. And while the template is still holding on for dear life, get a straight edge in there and convince those corners that they want to be bent. There. And there you are. So those can just be bent. Again, leave them a little bit short, because you want the glass to be kind of helping itself with regards pushing out into the body. You don't really want to be making the tabs do all the work. You want the glass to do a fair bit of the work. And that can simply go in there like that. And see what our first fitment's like. That's not looking too bad. Yep, that'll work. Right, so that's our main glass done there. And our front window, do exactly the same. And that's it. There you go. So now you can see the 3 tabs in there, which will have a little hole in them and glue, and the same on this one. You can see the 3 tabs. So just before I commit my body to glass, I'd like to do something a little bit posher with it. I'd like to line the inside of this glass aperture with a bit of black liner, just to spliff the whole thing up a little bit. So what we do now is we drill a 1.5mm hole in the end of each of these little tabs. So I'm going to have to get down my eyepiece now and drill those, so I won't bore you with that. But what I will offer you as a tip is to get yourself a lump of wood so that you can mount the glass more easily. It's worth getting a drill and popping it into the hole, a larger drill, and just deburring both sides of the hole so that you end up with a very, very, very slight countersink. So that's doing 2 things. It's giving the glue something to sort of encapsulate around. It's also flattening down the plastic so that when you push it against the body, the burr doesn't hold it away from the body and create a gap around the glass fitment. So like I said, we're going to use packaging tape to get the top of the car window into place. Now I did actually say I wanted to use some black, but turns out that I don't have any, so I guess I won't be doing that. So silver it is. So we cut a piece big enough to go on the inside. That's perfect, as it would happen. So we can lay that over there as neatly as possible and then trim off the excess. There we are. And then put the whole thing in and get it in exactly the right place. Making sure that it's exactly where you want it. And when you're happy, push the center down. It doesn't really matter in the long term if this piece comes off, because we're going to stick the edges down anyway through these little tabs. But that has got that glass in there pretty good. So as I say, the next job now is to get some super glue and dab these corners in. So I'm going to do that off camera because it's a little bit tricky to do that on camera, but basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my glue on my palette like I've showed you a few times now, and then with something like a toothpick I'm going to pick it up from my palette of wherever I've put the glue, say it's put it on that tape. I'm going to pop it in the hole, just a tiny little dot on the glue stick and just in the hole. Don't go too much because super glue has a habit of fogging plastic. But it doesn't fog it too badly if you don't use too much and you allow it to evaporate away from the work. So a little bit in there and dab it in there and just hold it until it glues and then move on to the next one, making sure you go all the way around and holding the glass tight. Sorry, I forgot to say, I'm going to be using my very wonderful standard Zap Green, which is a medium viscosity. And that's it. All the glass is in, all done. All glued in and tidy. So Lexan interiors come in a couple of different styles as well. They're often suited for certain cars, and if not, they're generic. And some of them come with heads and some of them come without heads. And the reason why they come without heads is you can buy aftermarket heads or indeed nick them from other cars like I have done here. So the choice is up to you. You choose the interior to suit your car and your personal requirements. Some have got twin drivers, like this is a rally format. Some have got single drivers. Some of them are open cockpit. This one's full cockpit. Some of them have got generic dashboards. Some of them not. Some of them have got detail in the back. Some of them not. And quite often they're all out of stock as well. So really your choice is taken away. But in this instance I'm lucky because I've got this one from the previous job. So what I've done is I've added an extra piece at the back. I've also used this pre-made corner of the packaging to my advantage so that I've got something to fix to at the back. I mean, if it's part of the moulding, you may as well use it. A little bit of super glue along here and that's nice and tight. So as you can see now, this isn't very scientific. It's just kind of, you know, keep chopping until it fits. So that now goes in there with the lip on the back that I can affix to. And as we can see, it fits inside the body shell rather nicely. So what I'm going to do now, just to spliff it up, because like I said, this isn't a full-on racing car, it's just a fun car with a view to performance. So that's incredibly light. So what I've got is some 1mm round styrene. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a roll cage. It's just a case of chopping up rod, drilling some holes, sticking it in and just making it look right. But I'll do this off camera as well because it's a little bit tricky and it's a little bit of an art to just try and work out where it all looks nice and where it all looks right. And I will be leaving it in white because I do want it to show up inside the car, because I won't have an engine in the back of this car. It should have, it's a 6R4. So to give it a bit of visual interest on the internals, it'll have a roll cage left in white so you can at least see some detail. So after a creative half an hour or so, I've created this impression of a roll cage. And when it's put inside the body, it gives a fairly reasonable representation of an interior with a roll cage. And there you go, all taped in. Right, let's see what we got here then. I don't know if you can see this, is 15.32 grams. So that's 15.5 grams for an entire body, which is very, very light. The lightest race car that I've got with a hard plastic body is coming out at about 16.5 to 17 grams. So I know it's a Metro, it's a small car, but it's significantly lighter than when it started off. So that's the interior done. Just got some stickers to go and some wing mirrors. I'll do those now and I'll come back to you. And that concludes the body with the stickers. I ended up changing the wing mirrors. The Pendle ones actually went on my Escort, which is a better colour match and a better fit for the car. So there we are. So that's the body pretty much, well, actually done. So I'm not sponsored by Staffs, but I managed to get his wheels from his stickers from the slot car show the other month, and I thought, well, they'd go well on this project. So there we are. Right, on to tuning up the chassis. So with the body finished and the chassis finished, we can now turn our attentions to tuning the chassis. Now I'm only going to skirt over this quickly because this video isn't really about setting up your chassis, it's more about the build. So the first thing we have to do with tuning any car is make sure that the wheels are round and the tyres are round. And for that you need a tyre truer. But I don't need to true these wheels themselves because these wheels are alloy wheels. They're the Pendle slot wheels and they're already round. So we can skip that step and move straight on to truing the tyres. So the first step in getting our tyres trued is get our bearings on. I like to put a spacer between the bearing and the pulley. And another bearing, pop the wheel back on and get the pulley on. There. And that will mount into the tyre truer like that. Right, let's get truing. Okay, with the tyres trued, we've now got something to work with. So we can assemble all of the parts. that's it. My Metro build is completely done. The custom made chassis all finished, body all finished, and the track test all finished. So if you remember, I said that getting round Crow Valley in 55 seconds or so is okay. Getting round in 50 seconds is quick. Getting round in below 50 seconds for 7 laps is flying. So you're probably wondering, how did my little Metro get on? Well, I'll show you. Here it is. So as you can see, pretty good, and from a smile on my face you can tell I'm pleased, and I am pleased. A totally unknown car, brand new scratch built chassis made from nothing. That's pretty good, and the car was very stable, very quick and very predictable. Great grip, wasn't top heavy at all. It would slide out before it would roll over. In fact, I hardly rolled it at all, to be honest with you. It was just spot on. Now there are some known quantities, like the pod is known, the guides are kind of known, the motor is kind of known, but the NSR tyres are known. But altogether as a package, in a totally scratch-made chassis with an old body that's 30 years old, that's as top heavy as they can be, I'm over the moon. So there we are, done. So hopefully you enjoyed that content. If you did, maybe you'll subscribe, and if you could hit the bell, that would be awesome. Until the next time, thank you very much.